So we've gone all the way to task number 9, and today we're gonna tackle task number 10, or at least task 10 and 11. Let's see how far we can go. Also, I said in a recent tweet that I suck at Active Directory, Windows, and all that stuff, which actually, come to think of it, I wanna get more into this. As I'm getting more and more experience in application security, which is my current focus and my current interest, at some point I would like to pivot and also develop my skills in the area of actual red teaming and penetration testing, Active Directory, and all that stuff. And this is maybe as a result of a recent video posted by, I don't think it's recent, I think it's from a year ago, posted by Live Overflow. You can check it out on its channel. I think it's penetration tester versus penetration tester versus pen tester versus, or pen testing versus bug bounty versus pen testing. Live Overflow, I believe. So this is the video that actually got me into thinking about a little bit pivoting. Now the proxy server is refusing connections because I don't have Burp Suite all fired up, and I'm actually proxying the Mozilla connection through Burp Suite. So let's actually refresh that, see what we get now. I believe it's this video, pen testing, so it's from May 15, 2021. Yeah, so you might want to look it up, pen testing versus bug bounty versus pen testing. Alright, so yeah, that's the video that actually got me into thinking, into pivoting a little bit in Active Directory and Windows exploitation, red teaming at some point, not necessarily now. And on that topic, I would like to probably start with Active Directory and some of the rooms that are Active Directory oriented on Try Hack Me. So if you have suggestions for some of these rooms, I think I found 3. If you have suggestions for some of the other rooms, just shoot them in the comments below. And now, that being said, let's actually go back to our Burp Suite basic, which is core feature or core part of application security. The attack box is already configured to solve the problem posed in this task. If you're using the attack box and don't wish to read through the information, you can skip. Regardless, you can intercept HTTP traffic. So what's next? What happens if we navigate to a TLS enabled site such as google.com? Now, my Burp Suite is already configured to actually work with HTTPS traffic as well, but in this situation you get an error, and specifically Firefox is telling you that PortSwigger certificate authority isn't authorized to secure the connection. That's why you have to view the certificate. So first, with the proxy activated, you go to burp cert. So let's copy this link and actually try and see if we can open it here. And it's actually going to save the dir certificate, the cert certificate, locally. After that, once you save the certificate, you go into Firefox preferences, look for certificates. Let's actually do that. So settings, certificates, view certificates. Once you have the certificates, you go to authorities, I believe, and then you just import your PortSwigger certificate. Let's see if we have it here. PortSwigger. So mine is already imported. So click view certificate. We can register a new certificate. So you're importing it, you're downloading it, and then you'll be able to visit. So you're in authorities, as I said, you open the one, or you import the one. Make sure to check that first option, and then you're ready to go. Simple and clear enough. which is why we've cleared task number 10 and we're able to move task 11. What I want to say is, again, as I think I've said it in previous videos, do share these videos, this series with other people on your social media, on your Twitter, everywhere you have a followership, because this is the only reason to actually motivate me to keep on doing these videos, to actually sharing my experience from pen testing from application security, because there's no incentive for me to actually do this. As I said, I'm doing this on my free time, and there's nothing in it for me from YouTube, so to speak, because as of right now, given the number of subscribers that I have, there isn't much into it, which is why if you want to help me keep on making these videos, I don't ask for money. I don't tell you to buy my courses. Just share these videos so they can get traction. The Burp Suite browser. So in Burp Suite you have a built-in browser. Burp Suite also includes a built-in Chromium browser. So Chromium is a functionality or a packet or an open source project that allows building in browsers, Chrome-based browsers, and whatever, in multiple functionalities, such as, for example, you could be using Chromium when you're trying to work with Selenium, for example, which is a Python project. It's a Python module that allows you to programmatically make requests, programmatically manipulate requests, create requests, manipulate requests so programmatically. I think that actually summarizes everything that I want to say. Whilst this may seem ideal, it's not commonly used as the process detailed in the previous few tasks. So people tend to stick with their own browsers, which is of course what I'm doing. So I'm basically maybe 5% of the time using the built-in browser, but it is there. So going to the Intercept, Proxy Intercept, we have the open browser. And there you have it. I believe this is their built-in browser, the Chromium instance. Alright. A Chromium window will now pop up. There are many settings to do with the Burp browser in the project options. Of course, if we're running on Linux as the root user, Burp is unable to create a sandbox environment, causing to throw an error. I think this is the error that I had. So there are two simple solutions to this. We could create a new user and run Burp Suite under a low privileged account, or we could go to Project Options, Embedded Browser, allow the embedded browser to run without a sandbox. So that would be in Project Options, MISC, allow the embedded browser to run without a sandbox. Then we go back, open browser. Let's see if that was the exact error that I got. Yeah, so no issues so far. Be aware that you will need to do this if using the embedded browser on the attack box. Alright. I already made a couple of requests to Google and to Mozilla, so I would say this one is checked. Task 11 is checked, and we're pretty good on time here. 9 minutes. Let's do another one. Task done. Scope. Task 12. Scoping and targeting. Finally, we come to one of the most important parts of the proxy, which is scoping. It can get extremely tedious to having Burp capturing all of our traffic. Now, let me tell you that I fully 100% agree with that, because that's one of the reasons I don't actually use Burp with Chrome here, because I've got already these like 10 or so tasks that are pinned in Chrome, and on top of that, I wouldn't want my entire traffic to be poisoned, not necessarily poisoned, but noised out. So when I'm working on an assessment on a certain web application, for example, I don't want my entire traffic to be noised out by all this communication that happens. Even so, as I have Mozilla opened here, I have to do a lot of ignoring of certain websites and certain hosts, so that my traffic is clear and only comes, so that all my traffic only comes from items that are within scope. So for example, let's say that I'm testing an application which is google.com. For example, let's say that I'm testing google.com. I would want to open my Firefox here with nothing else opened inside, and with actually ignoring all traffic coming from Mozilla, for example. And for that, I have a couple of settings that I'm using in the options over here. So in the TLS pass-through, I have a couple of Intercept options, I believe. So I have a configuration that I can load. So I have TLS pass-through options saved, and I load those options so that it would ignore traffic coming from Mozilla. There's also over here, I believe, in the Intercept response, I'm not actually really sure. It's actually saved in the projects that I'm working with, which is, I don't want to open them because there are some issues, there are some private issues there that I do not want to share. So what I'm doing is I have some configurations, saved configurations for the Intercept, saved configurations for TLS pass-through, and that actually gives me a very clean traffic coming into Burp Suite. I also use the filtering here in the HTTP history to actually hide for this, and also for WAF, WAF2, and a couple of others. I'm also showing only in scope items, which is why I'm adding on the target here at the scope. I'm actually using advanced scope controls, and I have this set up for each of the target that I'm testing. So everything that I'm doing here is with the purpose to have a very clean and clear traffic coming only from what I'm testing. It's quite easy if you're given only a subdomain, because you can just filter for that subdomain. And of course, here on the sitemap, you can just, for example, right click and then remove from scope. For example, here you can remove gstatic from scope or add to scope or whatever. So right now it's trying to load this lengthy gstatic, I believe it's a JS file, so that's when sometimes Burp Suite actually freezes, which is a little bit hilarious because you're paying $400 or $500 for a project for a tool, and it actually, there are some issues that haven't really cleared up. And I think it's been more than half a year now, close to a year, since I've told the folks at Burp Suite, at swiger, that when you're loading very large JS files, when I load very large JS files, even though my laptop has sufficient resources, 16 gigs of RAM, this thing freezes. And when you're in the middle of a project, it kind of sucks, because if you don't have the actual option to save everything every couple of seconds. I believe it's in there's a feature to actually auto-save everything every couple of minutes, seconds or so. I'm not actually really sure where that option is. Connections. Is it in user options MISC? Let's see. Updates, no. Proxy, no. Proxy interception, no. REST API, no. Automatic project backup. So this is where I'm actually saving the project every 5 or 10 minutes. Regardless, I think we've kind of dodged from our main path here. What's the solution scoping? So as I said, when it logs everything, including traffic to sites we aren't targeting, it muddies up logs we may later wish to send to clients. In short, allowing Burp to capture everything can quickly become a massive pain. And it actually is becoming a massive pain. Setting a scope for the project allows us to define what gets proxied and logged. So we can restrict Burp to only target the web applications that we want to test. The easiest way is to, as I've told you, go to the target scope and then add to scope. Burp will then ask whether we want to stop logging anything which is not in scope. So it's gonna say filtering logging out of scope traffic. So if I go to target scope, add to scope google.com, then it's gonna say logging out of scope proxy traffic is disabled, re-enable. And that same thing it's also gonna say here in HTTP history. So yeah, be aware of that. We can now check our scope by switching to the scope subtask. The scope allows us to control what we're getting by either including or excluding. So you can include in scope or exclude from scope, and use advanced scope controls, which allows you to go one step further by adding regexes. For example, enter regex, but if you don't use advanced scope controls, you just specify a prefix for URLs you want to match. Alright, so we can just choose to disable logging for out of scope traffic. To turn this off, we need to go into proxy options subtask and URL as in target scope from the Intercept client request. So this is more, so this adds more to the scoping, to actually adds more to advanced scoping by. So if you go to Intercept client requests, which is, I believe, proxy options, Intercept client requests, you can check this one because this one is already set. It's already preloaded by default but is unchecked, and the operator is and URL, so your matching URL is in target scope. You can check that one out. I don't think I have it checked. I do have Intercept client requests. Like I said, these ones I have my options already saved inside the file, and in this situation I would say add and domain name, for example, does not match Mozilla. How do you actually spell Mozilla? Where is it? Mozilla. So it's I would say and domain name or URL matches, does not match, or domain name does not match. So you have multiple controls here, multiple match types. And or, so you have two Boolean operators. Domain name does not match Mozilla.com. So all this would not be intercepted if the domain name does not match Mozilla.com. So for example, let's actually clear my history here, delete selected items. Let's try and test this out. So if we go to Mozilla. So it's mozilla.org, not .com. We can just edit that, mozilla.org, open source, mozilla.org. This actually is not intercepted, but it passes through it. So it is not here. What if I click on re-enable here and then refresh this? It's going to appear in there. So there are multiple hierarchies by which, for example, it's added in scope, it's excluded from scope. In proxy, you have the filtering options, show only in scope items, or you can just, for example, filter by regex. If I don't want to see Mozilla in here, I would say mozilla.org negative search, apply, and it's going to disappear. Again, these filters are set on multiple layers, and some of them override other ones, which is why you might be confused why in my proxy options, for example, use these settings to control which requests are stalled for viewing and editing in the Intercept tab. So I was making an error here. This is for the Intercept tab. So if we have Intercept on, let's actually do this. If we have Intercept on and then we just refresh here, it's not going to be intercepted. But if we refresh this, it's actually going to be intercepted. So do keep in mind that. Alright, let's actually go back in here. With this option selected, the proxy will completely ignore the intercept. Most specifically, will completely ignore anything that isn't in scope, vastly cleaning up the traffic coming through Burp. Add to your scope and change the proxy settings. I think we've done more than they ask here, so let's just do that one completed, and then I believe the next videos are going to tackle 13, 14, and the conclusion, which is just you have to click on completed here. So that's that.